Today, the Masters group at the Tata Steel Tournament in the Netherlands started, and I want to look at one of the decisive games from round one, and that was Anish Giri with white against Hou Yifan. Now Anish Giri, the Dutch #1, of course the local hope, and Hou Yifan, the strongest female player in the world. And well, Anish Giri has had the reputation of making too many draws in the top level tournaments, so it will be interesting to see if he can shake that off and start to get the wins. And it looks like, judging from the first round, that's possible. He opened up with e4. We saw Nf3 Nf6, the Petrov defense, a very solid way to play for black, but also black is more or less signaling that he wants to play for a draw, much like, of course, the Berlin defense and such openings. And there was a time when the Petrov was what people played mostly at the top level, but the trends go back and forth at the top level, and it seems that the Petrov might be making a small comeback at least. Magnus Carlsen and Caruana played also in the first round, and that was a Petrov as well. But we're following the main line here. Knight jumps back to f3, knight takes e4, and here the most common move is d4. When play usually continues with d5, and with this symmetrical pawn structure, this looks like the exchange French actually. The drawing tendencies are quite high. So more recently, the knight c3 move has been more popular at the top level. It at least introduces the pawn structure is not completely symmetrical, and introduces some possibilities of playing for a win. We keep continuing with the most common moves here: bishop e7, bishop e3, knight c6. And here by far the most common move is queen d2, which Giri didn't play. But that introduces the possibility, if black wants to go kingside, that we can have attacks on opposite wings, and white has some chances here for an advantage. Giri, however, went with bishop to d3. And this is a move that has been played by Michael Adams, among others, and curiously, this had been played in Adams against Giri with black in 2012. So maybe borrowing a note from his opponent. Queen e2. Usually white is castling queenside in this line. The king will be very solid behind these wall of pawns. Bishop f6. And after long castles, queen e7, it's clear that black wants to castle queenside as well. So black is banking on that. Her position is quite solid, and a draw is the most outcome. Giri went with king to b1. Well, simply adding protection to this pawn, and it's always useful to have a diagonal where the king can be checked. So a typical prophylactic move we also see in Sicilians. Now a6 by Yifan. After rook h1, centralizing the rook and developing the last piece. Black castles queenside. We can say that white is slightly better, but it's hardly much to speak about. And let's see what happens. Black centralizes his rooks, and g4 by white. So white is controlling a little more space on the king side. He's trying to expand on the king side to create something, but black is very solid. The pawn structure is without weakness, and the only thing that we can speak of that's bad for black is that all the pieces are on the first 3 ranks, so black isn't really grabbing any space. He's sort of surrendering it to white. So now after f4, White started to make some headway on the king side. Bishop to h4, and Giri goes for the trade here. Bishop to f2. Yifan so no reason to not to take. And now, well, there's a threat here with the pin on the bishop to simply play f5 when the bishop. So queen f8, f5 anyway, and now f6. Here Yifan goes with g6. Note that this isn't really an option. Your pawns will become too weak. We can either take on e8 first, or let's say we simply take here. We see that this pawn is already weak, and there are two weak pawns here. And it's so bad. White doesn't even have to go in for the pawn immediately. You can also take it with a knight, perhaps. Yifan decided instead to allow the pawn on f6, but keep the solidity of the pawn structure. And that was probably the right decision. Bishop e4 by Giri, and now king b8. White might have been thinking about taking on c6, and then squeezing the queen into a7, from where the back rank issues could become problematic. So king b8, prophylactic against that idea. Knight to c4, perhaps aiming for greener pastures, but we see quickly what Giri wanted to do. If the bishop pulls back at some point, we can maybe think about putting the knight on d5, but Giri also had another idea, which we'll see after Hou Yifan's next move, rook e6. It looks surprising. It's sort of like an unexpected exchange, like in Bobby Fischer against Petrosian, if you know about that one. That was a knight for a good bishop, a good knight for a seemingly bad bishop. But here, Giri gives up the seemingly good bishop. It's on a good diagonal for a knight that didn't seem to be doing much. But after bishop takes, Yifan took an e1 first, and bishop takes c6. And now we see the idea of knight c4. It's knight to a5. So white wants to get some weaknesses in the black pawn structure. Now, what are the options here? The most natural move is to try to keep the bishop with bishop d7, but then the bishop is kind of, let's get a variation color on that, bishop d7. Then we have rook e7, and the bishop is kind of in the way, because we want to trade the rooks if we can. Bishop to d5 allows c4. Okay, the bishop can pull back here, but now white seems to have some chances on the king side. The knight is well posted here. There could be some problems moving to this diagonal at some point, and there's even the chance of a rook lift. So white gets some attacking chances here. Definitely better for white. So what Hou Yifan did, she decided to play rook to e8 immediately, challenging the e file, and Giri took the opportunity to weaken black's pawn structure. We see that both sides have double c pawns, but white's structure is better because this is the only real weakness that can possibly be attacked out of these pawns. And white has also, as we see later in the game with b3, a much better shelter for his king. So okay, king continued, queen g3. Black doesn't want to take on e1 because then white can take with the queen, and there's already infiltration here, and black will have to be careful. Okay, king by king c8, but white has the upper hand with the pawn here. So instead we see queen to h8, and here Giri used the opportunity to threaten to double on the e file. He played a very nice move, rook to e7. And this takes advantage of the fact that the queen can't both protect the rook and take the pawn at the same time, so the pawn is indirectly defended. And here Yifan decided to take on e7. The pawn looks dangerous, but she has calculated that the queen is in time to block it, and the king will jog over and the pawn will fall. So let's see that. White will win another pawn in the meantime, but things look still around equal. White can get this pawn if he wants. So the king comes over, white plays h4, trying to make something happen on the king side, king d7, and now Giri takes on h6, Hou Yifan takes on e7, and now luft for the king, b3. So now we see it's a queen endgame, and the pawns are equal, but white has a small trump. He can make a pass pawn by pushing this. And also the weakness here. All this makes it a very tiny edge for white, but black should be able to defend. But Giri keeps on producing little problems for black. He plays g5 here, queen e5, queen f8. We have to take care of this, so queen d5, king b2. Yifan goes c5, simply adding cover to this a8 square. And queen f8 again. So note that there's no counterplay with d5, d4, as this pawn would fall. You can't go king c6 because of this check. And white has a sneaky threat in case of, let's demonstrate, let's play a bad move for black, like c4, then there's h5. And you can't take this because of g6. And note again how safe, okay, so it's very important in this endgame. So after queen f8, Yifan went with queen d5 again, queen g7, and again we have a sneaky little threat. If we again try c4, I think h5 is possible here. G takes h5, g6. That's one idea that black might have to worry about. So queen f5 adds protection to g6 in case of any h5 push. But Giri keeps on probing. It's well possible that some players might have agreed to a draw here, but Giri wants to continue. So on we go. Now, having gone in circles, it's time to try something on the queen side. So a4. The pawn isn't really needed for king shelter, so it seems useful to get the pawn closer to promotion, and when you win this weakness you maybe have a passed pawn. Queen f1 by Hou Yifan, queen f8, and we remember this h5 threat, so the queen goes back to f5, queen a8 continuing to probe, queen f1 covering the a6 pawn along a distance, queen e4, and this should still be around equal, but Giri is very persistent here. Queen g4, d5, and yeah, this doesn't really look necessary, but also doesn't look wrong. a5 and queen e1. Here Giri decides to get rid of the h pawn, probably figuring that with black attacking it as a weakness you have to get rid of it before you can do something else. So h5 takes, queen e6. Queen check on h8. This is mostly designed to get control over this diagonal, so that after king e7 he can play b4. Now here it's probably better to take than to take on c4. In either case, Hou Yifan took. White's only trump now is that he can potentially at some point make a pass pawn here by pushing b5. And that actually becomes relevant. King d7, queen d4, and here one of the two critical points, I guess. Queen f5 could have been played, but it's really difficult for white to make progress. Everything seems to be holding up for black, and it's not at all clear how white proceeds here. Maybe there's a breakthrough with b5 as an idea to try to play for a win, but certainly not the move that Hou Yifan played here. He played King C8. And this allows a very nice move by Giri. He plays Queen F6. So all of a sudden it's okay to go for the king and pawn ending for white. So it seems. It's actually still a draw. Now, if a move like King D7, which wasn't played, white can actually take on E6. Let's quickly see if we take with a pawn. Then this outside passer is the decisive factor. We just play G6, then our trump from the other side, B5. And black can't deal with two strong white passers here. King takes E6. It's more or less the same. We can break through. I mean, there are many ways you can play C4 and bring the king. There's also the possibility of simply breaking immediately with B5. Hey doggy. And after this, black is simply not in time with the rook, with the king. We're not in the square of the pawn where the king needs to be. So white is winning this. So Hou Yifan actually took an F6. And still should have been able to make a draw. She played King D7 correctly. King B3 by Giri. And here the decisive mistake. She played King to C6. And after C4, black is just losing. So in this position she had to play last chance King D6. Now the king is close enough. If you break with B5, you play C4. You can actually not take and play C6. And it seems that white is not able to make any progress here. Now we're stopping this B5 idea, and white has to be careful. Black can't really go for this because we go King C5, but we simply stay here. And on King C5, King C7, the king must retreat, and the draw should be held. However, after Hou Yifan's horrible mistake, King to C6, you can't really take. He played D4. You can't take because King takes C4. And now the simple but very important concept of outside pass pawn will decide the game. So king somewhere, like King D7 for instance, there's B5, takes, and white, okay, the simplest idea is to queen this pawn. Black tries to stop it, and then in the meantime we simply go for this pawn, and we're much faster to this one, and once we win it, we make a new queen. So the last move were kind of desperation by black. She tried D4, but this pawn is simply going to drop. King comes back to C2. And now, importantly, King D2. Giri is not going to mess up such an opportunity. If you go King D3 immediately, and C5 becomes a problem. And here you'd have to play B5, because if you take, then the momentum swings, and it's actually black that's winning. That's a Zugzwang that you must know. It's a mutual Zugzwang in the end game. So Giri takes care here, plays King D2, C6 by Yifan, and the king simply goes the other way, not allowing this C5 idea. Now you can't play C5 because the king is not protecting your pawn. King C7, and now white is simply up a pawn. And here we saw a little triangulation by Giri. He now gets the same position, but with black to move, and that was enough to force the resignation. Let's quickly see what could have happened. Let's say King to D7, and the king jumps into C5. And again, like in the previous example, now we're actually up a pawn, so the outside passer will completely decide the game. We'll just go for go this route for the pawn, while the black king has to deal with the a pawn and the queen. And there's no idea of after king d4. There's no idea of play c5 here. We can simply take it, and even though you win the pawn, it doesn't really matter. Well, there are many ways to play here, but eventually you must drop back and the pawn queens. Note that, okay, this is not the easiest way, but it's kind of cool. And then king, well, anywhere, and then push the pawn, and we win, because black has to lose tempo here. So, yeah, not the easiest win, but a nice win by Anish. So important to get a good start in this tournament. Exactly what I did. So I'll try to cover some games from this tournament if I haven't and find the time. So goodbye from me and Snoop Dogg over there. Wake up, doggy. Okay. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.